In this video, we will design a Turing machine that accepts the language L, where it's a set of strings a to the I, b to the j, c to the k, such that I times j equals k, and I, j, and k are greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so let's do an example string to make sure that we understand. So we have the number of A's times the number of B's equals the number of C's. So if I have A, B, 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 then I should have 6 C's. Okay? So how would we check this? If we think of multiplication as a series of additions, what we're saying here is that for every one of the A's, we should have the number of B's in the C's. Okay, so if I was just going to check this manually, I could say, okay, so for the first A, cross off B number of C's. So for this B, cross off a C, for this B, cross off a C, for this B, cross off a C. Okay, now for the next A, for this B, cross off a C, for this B, cross off a C, for this B, cross off a C. Okay, and this would be how I would know the number of C's was equal to A's times the number of B's. So this is more or less what we're going to do with our Turing machine. We need to be more precise in order to describe it for a Turing machine. But this is the general idea. So let's see if we can describe its behavior and then make the state diagram. So if we notice, the one other condition here was that I, j, and k have to be at least 1. So let's take this string again. Yeah. So the first thing that I would do as a Turing machine, I'd start at the beginning and I would scan and make sure that I see at least one A. Okay, and this way I can actually also check the format of the string. I can make sure that all of my A's are at the beginning, B's are in the middle, and C's are at the end. So I would read at the beginning, I would say, okay, there's an A. Okay, good, I have at least one A. It's only, it's followed by A's until the first B. Okay, well I have at least one B now. I'm scanning forward. If I ever see an A, I reject, but I don't. I see a C. Okay, so I have at least one C, great. I'm going to keep scanning. I'm going to keep scanning and make sure I don't see either an A or a B. So as long as I keep seeing C's, shape, finally I get to the blank at the end and I say, okay, what do I know? I know that my string's in the right format and I have at least one A, one B, one C, so I've met that condition. Okay, so I've reached the blank, so now I'm going to and go all the way back to the beginning. So I'm back at this A again. Okay, and now the way we're going to design this Turing machine is now we would go into the second phase. Because we're not going to have enough room, so I'm actually going to build it as 2 different diagrams and then say how to connect them. So that would be the first phase, this check phase. Okay, so we're back at the beginning. What do I need to do? Well, in our idea, I need to cross off one A. So I'm actually going to replace the A with an X. And then now what I need to do is cross off a C for every one of my B's. Okay, so I have this string. So I've replaced this A with an X, and now I'm going to scan forward until I see a B. So I'm going to skip over all of my A's. Okay, so I see a B. I'm going to replace it with a Y. And then I'm going to scan forward. I'm going to skip over my B's until I see a C. Okay, I'm going to replace that with a Z. And I'm going to go backward. I'm going to skip over, so let me fill in the rest of the string. Okay, so that's what my string would look like at this point. I'm going to go back until I hit the Y. Okay, I know that's the last B I've checked, and then I move forward. Okay, I replace that B, whoops, talking and writing at the same time is no good. Okay, all right. So here's what I have. All right, now I'm looking at this B right here. I'm going to replace it with a Y. I skip any of my B's. I also skip Z's. Z's are C's I've already checked. I'm not interested in those until I find the first unchecked C, which would be here. And I replace it with a Z, and then I move left again. How far left do I go? I go all the way to the first Y I see, and then I go forward by 1. Okay, let me fill in the rest of the string. So this is where I'm at. All right. So now I replace this B with a Y. I skip over any Z's. Again, not interested in those. And now I'm looking at this C right here. I replace it with a Z. And I scan back. Okay, I start scanning back. I see a Y. Remember, our process was scan back until you see a Y. I scan forward looking for another B to check, and I don't find one. I get a Z. That means I have checked all of my B's. Okay, and specifically, I have crossed off the number of C's that corresponds to the number of B's. That's where I'm at. Okay. This corresponded in our original example to the single dots under the B's. So now what do I need to do? Well, I need to do two things. Number one, I need to turn all of my Y's back into B's. If I'm going to repeat this phase, I need to be able to check off B's against C's. Well, I don't have any B's, I have Y's, so I need to convert those Y's back into B's. And then I need to look for another A, right? I need to know, should I continue this process? So on our way back, we're going to turn all of our Y's into B's and move left. I'm going to skip over any A's I see until I find an X. At that point, I know that I'm ready to go to the right and look for a new A. I see the A, I replace it with an X, and then I move right. I would skip over any A's I see until I find a B. Okay, I'm going to speed this process up just a little bit. So I turn this B into a Y. I scan forward, skipping B's and Z's. I find a C. I turn it into a Z. I go back. Scan back. I'm looking for the Y. I find the Y. I move forward one, turn that B into a Y. Skip over any B's and Z's. And then turn the first C I see into a Z. Scan back, hit the Y, move forward. Turn that Y in, or turn the B into a Y. Skip over any Z's. Look at the last C. I know I need to turn that into a Z. And I move back. Okay. So now what do I need to do? I need to move left through all my Z's. I hit my Y. I move right. Instead of seeing a B, I see a Z. Therefore, I know I have run out of B's to check. And now at this point, I don't know that I'm done. I'm a Turing machine, right? I don't know that I'm done. I need to repeat the procedure where we turn all of the Y's into B's. That's what we would do. Okay, and I'm scanning to the left to see if there's another A to check. There isn't. Okay, instead of ever hitting an A, I hit an X. This means I'm done with the A's. Okay, now what I need to do is verify that I'm done. Okay, how do I verify that I'm done? I know, I should know at this point, yeah. Okay, so what do I know? I know that I have checked off all the A's. I know that for every A I've checked, I have crossed off BC's, otherwise I couldn't have continued in my computation. So here, I'm going to scan right, I'm going to skip over any B's, and I'm also going to scan all of my Z's. If at any point I see a C, it means it wasn't crossed off. It means there were more C's than the number of A's times the number of B's, because it didn't get crossed off, so I would reject. If after scanning all of my Z's, I get to a blank, I know I can accept. Okay, so it seems a little convoluted, but all right. So here's the first phase. I said we were going to do a couple phases. I'm going to do them on different screens just because there's not a whole lot of room. All right, so first phase, we need to check both that we have one of each character and that they're in the right order. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of shorthand just because, again, this machine is going to get a little messy. So if I write A goes to R instead of A goes to AR, so up here A goes to R is the same thing as saying A, write an A and move right. Okay, I'm just saying don't change the symbol on the tape. Write an A and move right. Okay, so this tells me I have at least one A. I'm going to skip over any A's, looking for a B. This tells me I have at least one B. Skip over any extra B's. This tells me I have at least one C. Skip over any extra C's. Okay, now once I've skipped all the C's, I should eventually hit a blank. If I don't have any B's or A's to the right of the C's, I will hit a blank after doing this loop in Q3. So I'm going to hit the blank. Whoops, I don't want to move right. I want to move left. And I want to go back to my string, to my input. Okay. So by the time I've hit Q4, it means my string's in the right format and I have at least one of each character. Okay? Now what do I need to do? I need to basically rewind all the way to the beginning of the string. So I'm going to skip over any A's, skip over any B's, skip over any C's. And when I see a blank, I'm going to move right. This is going to put me at the beginning of my input. Okay, and we're going to call this state Q5. All right, so this is phase 1. All right, so Q5 will be the state that we're in after completing phase 1, and we're going to start that on the next screen. Okay, so when you see Q5 here without any transitions into it, that's not true. They're just on the last screen. So I'll even put dash 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 transition. Okay. So now we are at where we're going to cross off an A and then cross off B's and C's, matching numbers of B's and C's. So we're going to cross off the number of, we're going to cross off J C's for each of the I A's. Okay. So what does that mean? It means if I read an A, I'm going to mark it with an X and move right. Okay, I skip over any extra A's. I'm not ready to deal with those yet. We're going to deal with them later. Okay, so when I see my first B, my first B, I'm going to mark it with a Y and move right. Okay. So now here, I want to skip over any B's and any Z's. Z's are C's I've already checked. So on a B, just go right, and on a Z, just go right. Okay. Now when I find a C, it means it hasn't been checked yet. I'm going to mark it with a Z and move left. Here I'm moving back. Essentially I'm looking for the first unchecked B. So I skip over Z's, these are checked C's. I skip over B's, these are unchecked B's. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for the Y. Remember in our example, like here, after I checked, I think it was this Z, I scanned left, I skipped all my Z's, I skipped my B until I found that Y. That told me, here's the last unchecked B, so if you go forward by one, if you go right one, you're going to find the B you need. It's phase 1, phase 2. So I skipped over Z's and B's. Now when I find my y, whoops, yeah. That's not an error, that's correct. When I find my y, I'm going to go right. Okay, why didn't I go back to Q5? Q5 is the state in which we cross off an A, and then we cross off B's and C's, a matching number of B's and C's. I don't want to go back to Q5 because I haven't finished all crossing off C's for every B. Okay, so that's why I need to go back to Q6. Okay, then I would see the next B, mark it with the Y, scan through, find the Z, C, mark it with a Z, and then repeat this process. Okay, when do I get to stop? I get to stop, or move on, if you will, when after the Y right here, when I go back and find the Y, if I move forward and immediately find a Z, it means I have matched, I've crossed off the number of, I've crossed off all of the C's that correspond to the B's. I've crossed off J C's. Okay, so if I bounce and hit a, if I see my Y and then I immediately see a Z, it means it's time to go look for the next A. Okay, so how do I handle that? So here in Q6, I got into Q6 one of two ways. One of them was by hitting a Y, which is the last checked is B. So if I'm in Q6 and I see a Z, then I need to move left. Okay, and what did I do? I'm in Q9 now. This is where we turned all of those Y's back into B's. We're kind of resetting the we're resetting the Y's as B's so that we can do this for the next A. Okay? So now what do I do? I've reset all my Y's as B's. This was this step here. It was moving from this step to this step. So I reset all of my Y's as B's, and then I had looked for the next A. I might have more than one unchecked A. I really want the first one, the leftmost one. So I'm going to, once I see an A, I'm going to move left. I'm going to move through any extra A's. Okay, until I hit an X. When I hit an X, it means this was the last A you checked off, so now move forward one and you'll find your new A to check off. Okay? And then we repeat this process. So I check off an A, I skip all the extra A's, and now I move through my B's and C's. I cross off J C's, the number of B's I have, I cross them off in my C's. We've shown that this process works. After I've finished crossing off all of my B's, what does that look like? It means we hit a Y, we move right, and we see a Z. It means I've crossed off all the B's. Okay? Now I can replace my Y's as B's. Now I need to know, do I have room? I have room. Okay, so if my string now looks like this, this is what my string would look like at this point if I've handled this for all of my A's. Once I reset all of my B's, so I've turned all my Y's into B's, and I'm doing that by moving left. If I have any that are unchecked, I'm going to find it here. Okay, that's what this transition from Q9 to Q10 does. It says, oh, I see an A, move left, and then, skip over any of those A's to find an X. Well, here I don't find that. I find an X instead. So what I'm going to do is, if I see an X instead of an A, I'm going to move right. So this would push me back here. Okay, I'm in Q11. Remember we said we're going to skip over the B's. On B's, move right. We also want to move right through any Z's. Z's are crossed off C's. If at any point, say my string looked like this, if at any point this happens, I would reject. So I don't have a transition on a C out of Q11 for good reason. This would take me to a reject state. So I could write it in, but we've already said if there's not a transition available on an input symbol, it goes to the reject state. Okay? Otherwise, I move right through all my Z's. I say, okay, so let's say this guy doesn't exist. I say, oh, those are great. I have Z's. What point do I stop? If I read a blank after seeing all of these Z's, then I know I can accept. Okay. So if we put this Turing machine together with this part of the Turing machine, we have the Turing machine for the language. Just double checking. Yeah. So verify that this works. We did a little bit. This was the same process that we did down here. But pick another string. Maybe you could try it on the string like ABB should be equal to CC. You could also try it on the string AAB. This is going to give me CC. Or you could try it on a longer string. You could try it on, say, AABBBB, and then I'm going to cheat 8 C's, right? So try those strings and make sure that this works.